Governments all around the world are promoting electric mobility and setting targets. As we all know, Israel is a leading force in the smart mobility revolution. So I highly advise and recommend to listen well to what are the targets of the energy sector of Israel for 2030. So please welcome Adiri, Director General, Minister of Energy.
Okay. Good morning, after everybody. My name is Adiri. I'm the Director General of the Ministry of Energy. And I was thinking, what could I contribute to this wonderful event when I saw the agenda and all really the interesting speakers and panels. And it probably will have nothing to do with technology or with innovation. What I will try to do in the next 10 minutes is describe a little bit to you how we see in the government, namely in the Ministry of Energy, how do we see the issue of fuel choices in the next decade, what are our targets and ambitions, what are the barriers that we have defined, and what is the policy that we intend to implement in order to reach to the targets that we have put. So, just to put everything in the right context, so the Ministry of Energy has just concluded a pretty comprehensive work in order to define our targets, especially regarding fuel choices in the energy sector. And in order to simplify things, we look at the energy sector, we divide it into three sectors. One of them, of course, is electricity, transportation, and industry. So it's not exactly a definition according to the end use, but it's very helpful in order to put the policy and to think what are our targets. So regarding electricity, we are talking about actually producing all the electricity in the state of Israel by using natural gas or renewables by the year 2030. I have to say that in this sector, it is ambitious, though we are on the way. We have done maybe 50% of the work already, and it's a matter of policy that is pretty simple for the government to adopt. Regarding industry, so it requires us to implement the needed grid for natural gas, but again, even today, more than 60% of the industry in Israel using natural gas as its fuel instead of heavy oil or LPG. In transportation, though, we've put, I think, pretty straightforward and ambitious target that says that in 2030, we want all the vehicles in Israel to use natural gas or electricity as their fuel. So regarding trucks and buses, we talk about natural gas, and for cars, we talk about electricity. So the question, so first of all the things are working together. Of course, that if you produce your electricity from coal, it might not be such a good idea to move all the cars to electricity. But if you produce electricity from natural gas and renewables, so then things are working good together. There's a lot of symmetry between them. So one might ask, if you look at the situation today, so you see on the right side, you see the targets for 2030, you see our target is the blue line. The red and green lines are European, all sorts of forecasts by Bloomberg, by others. So one might ask, how come Israel today is really, you see, is not a leader? It's not even a follower. It's just out of the business of electric cars. So when you bring the prudence, or maybe it be chutzpah, to say that 12 years from now we want to be up there. So first of all, you have to see why we feel in the government that Israel has a good chances to be there. If you look at the conditions of Israel, you see that Israel has just all the needed conditions to become a leader in using electric cars. Of course, I have to say, it all depends on what happens in the world regarding the technology, of course. But Israel is a small state. It's actually an island, if you think about transportation. The fuel prices, the gasoline prices, the diesel prices in Israel are relatively high, of course, mainly according to taxation. The electricity prices in Israel are pretty low, maybe in the low third of OECD. And Israel is a very innovative state. And the people of Israel usually like to adopt new technologies. So if you look at this, and you look back on the previous picture, you see where Israel today. So the question is, what are the barriers? So in the Ministry of Energy, we launched a survey in 2017-18 to see how people in Israel see the issue of electric cars and what might make them consider to purchase electric cars. You can see that most of the citizens in Israel today don't see electric cars as a very attractive option. Most of them are indifferent between electric cars and gasoline cars, and some of them are strictly against. Some of them have some, prefer it a little bit. And then we ask them, why is it so? What would make you consider having an electric car? And it might not be surprising, but it has a lot to do with infrastructure. People want to see that there is a way to charge electric cars on Israel roads, and one cannot blame them for that. If you buy a car, you want to know that there is any way to charge it. And people want to know that they could charge the cars at their parking lot or at their home. So, and especially most of the people, 87%, think that if you could not install a charging station at your home, you would not consider buy an electric car. So, the challenges that we see, according to this survey and other analysis that we have done, is first of all, we have to work on the availability of public charging infrastructure, there is lack of information in the public. We need to solve some government bureaucracy regarding, to make it much easier for one to have a charging point in his home or in his working place. We need to make the cost of the EV cars more, let's say, more attractive to the public. We need to work on charging stations at home, and of course, putting some, working on the electricity grid in order to absorb all of these charging points and electricity. So what we have done, we've put a plan, and some of the steps have already been taken, and some of them are more like future steps. So what we have done already, we put some money in order to solve the chicken and egg problem, to put the first steps in implementing charging stations for electric vehicles as well as CNG trucks. So we allocated 100 million shekels to promote or to support new CNG stations. And we also launched, actually, the tender is going to be published in the next few days. We already published a teaser regarding supporting, it might be municipalities as well as commercial purposes, but to support the establishment of charging points, speed and regular. And this is something that we are already doing. And what we put in place a very stable and supportive tax framework for CNG trucks and buses. What we still have to do is to implement the policy regarding all the procedure to have a charging point. We have to work about regulation for electric cars and charging points. And we have to give some stability and clear horizon for the taxation policy of electric cars. Today, if you buy electric cars in Israel, you have only 10% of tax. But people have no horizon, so we need to put a 10-year framework that everybody knows what is going to be the taxation. The next steps we are now working with the public. We put our plan out there for the public. We're working with the public. We're going for a public sharing next week. And afterwards, we're willing to put in a government resolution and to implement it. So we believe that if the government will take its role and put it as a goal, put a target, and put some supportive elements, then there is no reason or Israel won't become a leader in electric cars, even in 2030 and even before. Thank you.